I wanted to share with you some thoughts in my head this morning while some of this is still fresh in my mind. Um, Yesterday, or last night, I got to play with the what's it called? Waldo Jazz Collective. I was actually subbing for a friend of mine, which I'm going to have the privilege of doing for the next several weeks. Um, so anyway, I wanted to kind of give you kind of a backstage pass to what it's like to play a jazz jam session and kind of what goes on. Um, this is a little bit different perspective um, than some of the other things I've talked about, I guess, because I think I wrote a blog article a few years ago, or a few different blog articles about sitting in at jazz jam sessions, and that's different than when you're in the house band. So I didn't know what to expect last night. I didn't know any of the players. I had no idea how big the group was going to be, or what music they were going to play. Um, so that's pretty much what I was walking into. With these type of things, there's never any rehearsals usually, and so got there and very tiny stage. And my first thinking was, I looked at it and I thought, are we a duo tonight? Because it doesn't look like there's any room for anyone other than the piano player, and there really wasn't even room on the stage for my drum set. So anyway, I've played in those situations before, and so I just brought a cut down set in, my bass drum, snare drum, hi-hat, one small tom, and then I have a way I can mount a cymbal on my bass drum when I need to, so I don't need any other cymbal stands. And I was able to fit that on the stage. Most important thing is that I can have room for my feet, really. I mean, if you don't have room to work the hi-hat and the bass drum, then that's a real problem. And when I play the Phoenix, it is sometimes a problem. But anyway, so I managed to get it all on stage, and then after a while, the players started showing up, and a lot of them were on the floor. And it was a fantastic experience. All great musicians. I met a Navy trumpet player who'd played in some of the top Navy bands, and so we had pretty good talk about that, because if you know anything about my story, I was in the Army band. So he got out of that for the same reason I got out of the Army band. He was tired of playing ceremonies. I wanted to play jazz, which is why I came to Kansas City. So anyway, so this jam session, as we're sitting there, had lots of different thoughts. Realized how fortunate I was to be in a city where I could do this. I had kind of a flashback to Omaha, Nebraska, when I first went to a jam session at a place called Kilgore's when I was in college. I think that was probably the only jam going on in Omaha. It was once a week, I think, on Monday nights. In Kansas City, we have these pretty much every night of the week. Many times there's 2 or 3 going on the same night. Like last night, that was a Monday night. I'm sure there was probably one at the Blue Room, and probably other blues jam sessions, just all kinds of stuff. So, but anyway, so a lot of the tunes, I know a lot of tunes, but a lot of the tunes they called last night I did not know. And so I realized, wow, I still need to do more listening. Need to learn some more tunes. But what you do is you just use your ears. Sometimes I'd even ask the band leader, is this a bossa nova? Is it a swing, or what is it, or how are we going to do it? Because sometimes you play the same tunes different ways. And so you might have always heard the tune as a bossa nova, and the singer's going to do it as a swing tune. So you kind of need to know that before you start the song. And as a drummer, you try to get really good at listening. And so I'm ready to switch really, really quick if I think it's going to be, a bossa nova, and it turns out to be a swing tune or something like that. What else? When it comes to soloing, it's a little bit different for a drummer because you don't need to know the chord changes, but it definitely helps if you know the song, because then you can follow the form, you can follow the melody, and sing it in your head as you're playing. But when you're playing a tune that you've never heard before, you got to really think on your feet. So I try to really quickly listen for the form of the tune, and just do the best I can. But the players were very, very complimentary, and I thought to myself how interesting it is. You have kind of a brotherhood playing jazz that I don't think exists in any other genre. You have something in common, and it's like we'd known each other for years, even though we had just met. And I was talking to the bass player, and we were talking about the fact. I said it's become more and more aware to me. I've become more and more aware of the fact in jazz, it doesn't really make any difference what your age is, because we play with all different ages. You know, I played with some really young guys last night, some older guys, and it's always been that way. When I was younger, I never even really thought about it, but I've realized now, you run into lots of people that are very paranoid about that. Young players, I've run into young players who think that they won't be taken seriously because they're too young, and then the older players think the young players won't want to play with them because they're too old, and it's just kind of funny. But the reality is, there's just very little of that. The jazz is primarily about the music. It's not about image. You know, certainly they use image to sell jazz. We can all think of, really glossy album covers or pretty faces, and so that's an added bonus if you have a really good looking singer, or the trumpet player is really really good looking or whatever. But that's really not what the music is about primarily, and so the age thing doesn't really come into play so much. We were also talking about the fact last night, that it's a very honest music, because if, as soon as someone starts playing, you can tell right away, does this person know what they're doing? Are they a good player or not? Everyone that played last night was a very good player, so we were fortunate. With the jam sessions, you really never know exactly who you're going to get to sit in. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about it, but I just wanted to kind of share some of these thoughts with you, while it was still fresh in my head. So hope you enjoyed that kind of backstage look into a jazz jam session.